Okay, here we go. Hi everyone, Jeremy Beartano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Arcade Fire album, Everything Now. This is the latest full-length album from Montreal indie outfit, actually indie legends, Arcade Fire. This is their 5th studio album, and now it's been well over 10 years since the band's debut album, Funeral, a genre-defining record, a high point for indie rock. Tons of epic, lavishly arranged songs on this thing, packed with passionate vocals. The record also, in my opinion, has a flawless flow. And then the band followed that up a few years later with the equally epic Neon Bible, a record that featured a lot of religious themes, heavenly musical highs, dark, depressing lows. And then the band's 3rd record, I also enjoyed, The Suburbs. It was kind of like a, ooh baby, a triple! The band going in a little bit more of a socially conscious direction this time around, more of a societal scope to their criticism. Their most direct album yet, in my opinion, as far as like the sound of a rock album goes. Lots of very strong Springsteen influences on a couple cuts here. And then the band delivered this sudden stylistic pivot with their record Reflektor several years ago. The album boasted production from LCD Sound System's James Murphy and featured the band's most danceable material yet, pulling influence directly from the worlds of disco and new wave. Now, personally, in my opinion, this is where the band in their discography had first faltered. Easily the most inconsistent Arcade Fire album so far. I thought it was kind of bloated. The whole double disc thing really could have been cut down. Every step outside of the band's comfort zone felt like a haphazard experiment. And not only that, but as a dance music band, Arcade Fire is mediocre at best. Coming away from Reflektor, I had hoped that this record would just simply be a phase for the band, but it's not a phase, Mom! It's not a phase! Ugh. The dance beats are here to stay on the band's latest effort here, Everything Now, which from the sound of the singles alone felt like the band was going to be going deeper into this territory, and in fact they do. There's not really a single moment on this album that feels like it kind of throws back to an older Arcade Fire, which there were at least several on Reflektor. It's almost like the transition is complete on this new record over here. Take the title track, for example, with its glamorous, shimmering instrumental, reads a lot like an ABBA instrumental, except for Win Butler's lead vocals and the weird freaking woodwinds toward the end of the track that are actually not that good. It's a song that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. My first impression of it was like, ugh, here we go again. I don't want more of this. The last thing I want to hear is Arcade Fire indulging in this sound again. However, with repeated listens, the song kind of won me over with its dazzling piano melodies and lyrics about the oversaturation of the information age. I kind of get the sense that the band is critiquing it, trying to satirize it a little bit on this track, but yet the instrumentation is just so glamorous and beautiful that, I don't know, it's almost like they're paying tribute to it as well. Like we're living in the middle of a beautiful, glorious future where technology has phased out a lot of the inconveniences of mankind. I think the maximal materialistic mentality of the modern age is an interesting topic for a band to approach on a record, especially a group that is of an age where they most likely remember a time when they were younger where computers didn't rule almost every aspect of your life. I kind of also get this vibe on the song Signs of Life, where it feels like the band is yearning for some kind of human or emotional connection, but they just can't get it. This track, even though I was kind of lukewarm on it when I first heard it, also won me over with its irresistible disco grooves. And honestly, just a few tracks into the track listing here, I was kind of getting convinced that maybe Arcade Fire has turned over a new leaf and is now successfully going to be creating dance music on this thing. I was really being convinced it was possible, especially with Daft Punk's Thomas Bangalter on production duties on this thing, as well as Steve Mackey of Pulp. However, it does not take long for Everything Now to completely fall apart in concept, in arrangement, in writing, in everything. The song Creature Comfort has one of the most wonderful grooves on the entire record, features these kind of buzzy, throbbing synth sequences that are very steady, some glossy, reverberating lead melody, some roaring guitar chords that give the song an epic feel. But when the lyrics come in, Win Butler starts forcing this somewhat socially conscious message with these gender stereotypes that feel like they're lifted right out of the tomes of a really depressing Tumblr post. Boys that hate their dads and girls that cut themselves and want to commit suicide because they have body image issues. These are not inherently bad things to sing about, but Arcade Fire's approach is just so surface level. And given the concept of the album, the band doesn't really do anything to connect this to I don't know, just the mental oversaturation of, again, the modern day, outside of kind of portraying these kids as wanting to be famous. And these depictions of young people with emotional issues breach into narcissism when the band depicts this female protagonist as wanting to die. She gets into the bathtub, she's getting ready to commit suicide, but she puts that first Arcade Fire album on first. Like, really? You know, I didn't want to kill myself until I heard that bullshit. Even if this story is true, like, to include it in the way that the band did, it just seems really self-congratulatory and super meta at a moment when maybe we should be focusing on, I don't know, what the individual here is doing and why. It really only gets worse from there as Arcade Fire embarks upon a couple of reggae fusions on the next few tracks. The band failed at flirting with this sound on their last record, so I did not want a second helping. However, the instrumental to the song Peter Pan is actually not that bad. There are lots of interesting textures throughout the track. It's not quite as flat and as one-dimensional as, like, Here Comes the Nighttime from Reflektor. It leaves a little to be desired from a lyrical standpoint. It seems kind of like just a very general love song, but it is written from the heart, as opposed to Chemistry, which feels like it's written from the hips. When you read into the lyrics on this thing, it actually comes off a little stalkerish. Not to mention the refrain kind of gets annoying after several listens. It is a bit of an earworm though, and oddly enough this instrumental not only brings another reggae groove, but on the chorus it mixes it with these roaring hard rock riffs, which it comes together pretty seamlessly. As much as an abomination as the song is from like a lyrical standpoint and a writing standpoint, it's just far too corny and sugary of a song for Arcade Fire to pull off with the lack of irony that they're trying to. Still, I do have to kind of give it to the band for like really kind of getting these two worlds to collide somewhat effectively. After this, the album kind of devolves further, almost like it knows it's not going to redeem itself at this point with these 2 tracks, infinite content and infinite underscore content. It's pretty much the same half-written song. One portion of it is this fast punk-tinged indie track that kind of brings back the album's central theme in the lyrics. And then all of a sudden that ends and we get a slow, dreamy country version of the track. And then we get to Electric Blue, which is easily the worst track on the record. And not for its colorful keyboards and nocturnal grooves. No, it's because of one, we have a really annoying lead melody that sounds like some kind of animal being strangled, and then that sound is like sampled into something rhythmic. And then there are the completely unintelligible falsetto vocals from Regine Chassagne, who I am usually pretty excited to hear on an Arcade Fire album. Usually when she brings some lead vocals on a cut, it steals the show, provides a nice breakup in the track list. Here, I want nothing more than the song to stop because her nasal, like almost eardrum piercing vocal tone is so hideous. I mean, even her backup vocals at a couple points on the record are really shrill and brittle and just not very, After this, the band tries to cool things down with the somewhat drab Good Goddamn, a track where I kind of like the wordplay going on in the chorus that kind of ties into the visual of this person committing suicide that I feel like we were hit with on Creature Comfort. The band is returning to it here, and the, wanting a good goddamn or sort of looking for a good goddamn sort of angle in the hook is essentially either talking about, oh, I wish, some god was up there who cared about this, or some god would intervene or, do something or fix the situation, or, a good goddamn meaning someone's interest or concern or help revisiting this feeling of loneliness in this really overwhelming world. A strong feeling of isolation, but these are feelings and these are intentions that I feel like I myself am projecting on the track, given its concept. There's not a whole lot in the lyrics here that actually kind of gives that away to me, and not because I think the band is trying to be obscure or sort of hide some intentions or meanings of this track. Just once again, I feel like Win Butler's vocals, his lyrics rather, are kind of approaching this topic in a very surface manner. And once again, we get this visual of, put your favorite record on, baby. And yes, we know what that favorite record is. It's the first Arcade Fire album. Thank you. The song Put Your Money on Me Miraculously is actually a pretty wonderful love song with ABBA vibes coming back into the fold toward the tail end of the track. The song has a very cute chorus that essentially asks one's lover to put money on him, bet on him being a sure thing, bet on him being there and being a faithful companion. Even though the instrumental is a bit of a slow burner, it does have a very steady, nice groove to it, and it is worth your patience. And the closing track matches these very lovesick vibes with this sense of heartache and longing that's pretty nice. However, I feel like this track kind of fails as any kind of wrap-up or summation to this very dodgy, inconsistent album and concept the band has sort of thrown into our laps here. It's hardly an effective send-off to this very lopsided project. That being said, the actual closing track is kind of this weird outro instrumental that is a bit of a reprise where it brings back the theme melody to the title track, but with this epic, large string section. And then this track loops into the introduction track, the sort of introduction interlude, which originally when I heard it, I think is an awful start to the record and actually kind of stalls what should be an effective beginning. I mean, I guess it's kind of nice that the album somewhat loops back into itself, but I don't want to hear it again all the way through. I mean, I don't really like it, and I'm not all that surprised because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm just kind of getting a second helping of the band's last record. Sure, everything now may head more boldly into a dance music direction. It has a somewhat more coherent theme concept to it. As far as length and track listing go, I guess it's a bit more manageable. But across the entire track listing, there are only a few songs that I'm actually excited by. Most of the record is just merely tolerable, and there are at least a decent handful of tracks that I think are downright awful. Like literally Arcade Fire writing and recording their worst material to date. So, I don't know, will the band finally just turn back from this ridiculous direction they've been speeding in for their past couple of records? I hope so. I'm feeling a strong 4 to a light 5 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Next to my head over here is a review of Arcade Fire's previous album. Check that out. Or click on the link to subscribe to the channel. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Forever.